Hi everyone, I just wanted to give you a quick overview of the Module 6 assignments for the week, just to try to decrease some confusion. So for Module 6, there's a couple objectives for this module, and one of them is performing a literature search for a quantitative research topic, and the other one is performing a literature search for a qualitative research topic, and then discuss the differences in approach to searching for each of these types of articles. So remember, quantitative literature talks about how much, how many, how often. These are the types of questions that we answer with quantitative research. And remember, there's statistical data in these research articles to generalize concepts or predict future results. So quantitative, if you're looking at articles and you're not sure what they are, you can look at the data section. Usually there's a lot of statistical analysis, a lot of tables, etc. Okay. So just as a quick review, the quantitative research is higher on the level of evidence hierarchy table. And remembering there's three different types of quantitative research: experimental or randomized control trial, we talked about those; quasi-experimental, which is missing one of the components, they're not manipulating a variable; and then non-experimental, they're looking for correlations or descriptions of phenomena. And again, this is where they are on the hierarchy table. And you can use this as part of your assignment for the week, looking at the hierarchy table. So quantitative literature research strategy, I just want to go over some things that might try to help you when you're looking for your articles for this week. I'm trying to get both of these up at the same time. Okay, so when you're doing a quantitative literature search, you can go to your resources tab in the in Blackboard. And what the librarians recommend for a research, you can go to their search e-resources and articles, and the Discovery All-in-One is a great one to use because it searches all the major databases like CINAHL, Ovid, and Medline. It's a very popular one to use. And the example we're going to search for is postpartum hemorrhage. So when you're doing literature reviews, they do take a while, and they always recommend that you start broad and then narrow your search topic down. So we'll do postpartum hemorrhage. And we do our initial search. Let's see how many articles we come up with here. We have about almost 10,000 articles. So how do we narrow that down? Well, you can see number 2 here, we're going to add some limiters. We always want to make sure our literature is in the last 5 years, or try to have it within the last 5 years. That brings it down to almost half. And then we want to do peer-reviewed, and remember, peer-reviewed means that they go through some very rigorous analysis of articles to make sure they're legitimate and well-written. Didn't bring it down a lot. And then we want to uncheck the full text box. If you check this, that you only want articles with full text, that's going to limit your results. So if we uncheck those, that gives us, it doubles it again. But if there's an article that's really of interest to you, we can always ask for it through interlibrary loan services. So also a little tip, if you're looking at an article, you can hover over this little magnifying glass, and you can briefly look at the abstract and tell you if it's anything that you're interested in. So it talks about this one here. I just pulled it up because it was at the top. They did some type of model. Looks like a quasi-experimental study, so that automatically tells you it's quantitative. So if you're looking for a quantitative study, there's one. So now that we have 11,000, there's some other things that you can do if you're looking for quantitative specifically. You can type in quantitative. That'll eliminate all the qualitative studies, or it may limit and that brings it down to 218. Okay, so the other thing you can do is add randomized control trial, which is one of the types of studies that we know that are in, and that brings us down to 1. So you can see how limiting those results, we can change that to, you can change this to quasi-experimental or non-experimental, or one of the types of quantitative research. I probably spelt it wrong. There we go, quasi-experimental. And that gives us 53. So if you're looking for a quantitative article this week, those are some examples of how you can kind of narrow it down and find some good articles. If you're looking and wondering what type of study it is, it may tell you right in the title. This one is nice because it tells you it's quasi-experimental. If you're not sure, you can go, and it may tell you in the abstract section, or if you scroll down, if you open up this article, if you open up the PDF and go to the methods section, it might tell you what type of study it is as well. But if you're not sure, you can always ask me. You may not find exactly the article that you're looking for. Maybe if you're studying blood pressure and yoga, I know I just use that one a lot, maybe there's not a lot of quantitative research on it. So if you're frustrated and thinking you're not doing it correctly, that probably is not the case. There may just not be a lot of information on that particular topic. Okay, so qualitative research, remember, quantitative is usually large numbers of subjects, larger numbers of subjects, a lot of data, a lot of statistical analysis. Qualitative, we're looking for exploration. We're looking to work really closely with the participants and develop a good relationship so we can get really good data. And that data is subject to interpretation by the researcher, right? So while quantitative research starts with a hypothesis, qualitative research can help develop a hypothesis for quantitative research. So remember, qualitative research is lower on that hierarchy table. Let's see here. And then remember, here's the different types, the 5 different types. 5 different types of qualitative research. You can see it's lower on the hierarchy level, but we don't start with a hypothesis. We start with we want to develop a theory, and maybe we can develop a hypothesis for some higher research down the road for quantitative studies. So that's kind of cool. So similar with, I wonder if I can clear this here. I want to go ahead and do that same search. We're going to do postpartum hemorrhage, but we're looking for qualitative articles. Okay, so now we're looking for women who have experienced postpartum hemorrhage, or maybe nurses or physicians that have been like a secondary source that have been with women who have experienced it. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go to that discovery because it goes, it limits to those really, or it maximizes to those good search engines we want. We're going to start broad with postpartum hemorrhage, and then we're going to add those limiters, which I think they're already limited. We're in 5 years, peer reviewed, and then we always want to make sure to uncheck the full text, because if there's a really good article, we don't want to limit it. I know in a accelerated program it's kind of tough because we only have a week to get assignments in, and this one is especially tough because your initial post is due on Tuesday. Anyway, and then so for qualitative studies, we can type in the type of collection method. So let's do qualitative here and see what comes up. Okay, so that limits it to 253, and this one is experiences from multi-professional simulation training on postpartum hemorrhage. So there's an example, perceptions and management of postpartum hemorrhage in remote communities. Okay, the other thing we can do is take away the qualitative term. There's no right or wrong to do this, but some of the ways you can do it are to add qualitative data collection methods. Remember, we don't collect data through statistical analysis. We want to interview people. We want to have focus groups. We do observations. So those are some of the key terms you can use to search. Postpartum hemorrhage interview, those data collection methods that they use in qualitative studies. Let's see so evaluation of nursing care in post-breastfeeding hemorrhage. So it may not be exactly what you're looking for again, but at least you've minimized or gotten these results down, so we can delete this and look for focus groups. So these are likely going to give us qualitative studies just because we're searching for the data collection methods, okay? Here's a qualitative study about high fidelity simulation. So this is how you're going to do the assignment for the week, okay? You might not exactly find what you're looking for. There is a really good video from the library. I just almost identically took this and reworded it just to try to make it easier to understand and a little shorter, but it's 4 minutes from the library and it goes over almost this identical search strategy. And back up in the quantitative literature review too, it's a 5-minute video and it explains kind of what we just talked about. So those are optional for you to watch. So for our assignment number 1, remember I told you guys that there is under the content, Module 6 content, there's an information literacy link, and this is going to take you about an hour to complete. It's one of the expectations that it's a transferable skill that you're going to learn here through your college, and it talks about literature sources, different things. So do that before you start the discussion. I hope maybe some of you have already started it. And I'm sure a lot of you have heard of PICO. This is a mnemonic for searching for terms for evidence-based practice. We look at the population of women or population we're looking for, what intervention did they use, what was the comparison, the outcome, and the time period. And the reason we want to really streamline these is because these are going to be our search terms when we're looking for articles, okay? So to translate that into a clinical question, it's in women age 30 to 50, how does 15 minutes of yoga compared to no intervention affect blood pressure over 8 weeks? So when we put those terms into the search engine, that's what we're going to look for. So for the assignment 2, the second assignment for the week, it's going to be a discussion. They gave you 3 choices. You can pick one of these. So it's really up to you of interest which one you pick. And if you do qualitative or quantitative search, it doesn't really matter to me. But if you look at the criteria here, you're going to design a strategy for a review of your literature. Use some of those things that we just talked about. Do you want to look for qualitative? Do you want to look for quantitative? You don't have to answer every single bullet point, but this is going to be your discussion initial post, okay? Summarize why you believe the article is relevant, why it's credible. So the other thing that's going to help you do this, is the worksheet, the critical appraisal worksheet, and I just uploaded that today. So the critical appraisal worksheet, you're going to take your article. So maybe we had one with yoga and blood pressure. I know that's not one of the choices, but you're just going to look at these headings here and you're going to answer the question down here. So you're going to put the reference here. Tell me about the abstract. Now this doesn't have to be anything extensive, but it's just to kind of get you in and see, is this good research? What kind of design is it? What type of study is it? How many participants? And what were the characteristics? Was there inclusion or exclusion criteria? How old were the articles in the literature review? Were they less than 5 years old? Remember, there's not always a framework, but if you look at this article that you picked, was there a framework? When you look at the measurement section, what type of scales were used? Did they use Likert scale, Braden scales, or was it a qualitative where they did interviews and questionnaires? If you look under the data analysis section, there should be some information about how they analyze the data. The t-test is a quantitative method to review data. You don't even need to know what it is or how it works, but you can at least identify that this is a test that they used for this. Briefly summarize the findings. See if you can plug it into that evidence of hierarchy table. Is it a randomized control trial? And if you can't, that's okay. Just guess. You're not going to get deducted if it's not correct. What are the limitations? Usually studies address limitations. And finally, what are a brief summary of the clinical applications? So I'm really excited. I hope this is, I know, maybe a little bit more challenging assignment, but again, you're not expected to be an expert. We just want to get you in there in literature, try to determine what kind it is, see what the good components of the rigor and things like that are. And finally, the live classroom word is critical appraisal. Now, I didn't want to have the live classroom on Monday because that would not give you very much time to complete that assignment. So this one is recorded specifically for that reason, because I wanted to give you some heads up on how to complete the assignment. And if you have any questions, please set up an email or shoot me an email, and I'm happy to answer any questions. And I hope you guys are having a great weekend, and we'll talk to you soon. I hope this helps. Bye.